So hello and welcome to the Lewis Nichols Show. I'm really excited to welcome back my next guest who took part in the epic 20 cast member reunion a couple of weeks ago, which was just amazing. What was it like for you, Darcy, to see everyone again? Because it's been so many years since you've kind of been in the same place at once.
Yeah, it was so nice to catch up with everyone because it seems like it's such a long time ago that it's not even in recent memory. Obviously, I follow like most of them on Instagram. Some people I still speak to anyway are still my friends. So but it was nice having everybody in one room, one virtual room. Yeah. It was lovely. It's such a good idea as well, like to put it together. It was really nice.
But was there anyone that you saw that kind of joined the call and you were like, oh my God, you didn't recognize them because they had changed so much since working with them on the show?
Not that I didn't recognise him. Obviously, Kane, like he's matured so much because I remember him like being a baby on it. But I think the nicest surprise for me was seeing Reese because obviously Reese lives in America now. So like I don't hear much from him. So I didn't expect him to be on it. So that was really nice for me to see Reese Noy on it. I was really excited about that.
So, I mean, going back really for you to the very beginning when you were growing up, was being an actress and kind of performing arts something you were always interested in? Did you have a love of that from an early age?
I mean, yeah, my mum would say yeah, because I know when I was younger, I was always the one that like wanted to do shows in the living room and like very bossy in terms of who could be in my shows and what I wanted to do. But I think initially it started from I used to love dancing. Dancing was like I'd always been interested that from being about 3. So it kind of just came from that. And then I'd moved to like, I went to a place called Stage 84, which is in Bradford. And then I think I started there when I was maybe about 5 or 6, but obviously I'm very short, so I still look like a 3-year-old. I've always looked very young and I'm very short. And then from that, we used to have like part of the classes where we had to do poems and we had to memorize them. It was like all in the learning. I think the principal who was there, it's called Mrs. Jackson, who like, I hope she hears this. I hope she's well. She's so great. I think she just noticed that I was quite cheeky and quite funny. So she said, she said to my mum, I think you should get her into the drama side of it. And then, so just from there, and I used to, with my performing arts, I used to do like theatre performances every year. I've just always really enjoyed doing it. And like all aspects of it, like musicals, I'm still obsessed with musicals. I love ballet. Like it's just always been something I've wanted to do. And then from being at Stage 84, I think my first proper audition was Grange Hill. And so I joined Grange Hill when I was 11, I think. And then from there, that's how everything started.
That's the crazy thing, because you think Waterloo Road at the time was, without a doubt, the BBC's one of their biggest shows, especially school dramas. But you've literally gone from one of the most iconic school dramas, being Grange Hill, that's been out for just ridiculous amount of years. And then you've gone on to the most current and popular one. So what was that like for you to go from one huge thing to another?
I think I always explain it as like, because there's a few of us that had a similar story. So like, so many cast members from Grange Hill also ended up on Waterloo Road. So Reese Noy, Will Rush, Lucian, Jack McMullen, we all came from Grange Hill. But I always say it's like Grange Hill was primary school and Waterloo Road was like going to secondary school. It was like, that's what it was like in terms of it. So it was, to be honest, before, when I was on Grange Hill, I didn't watch Waterloo Road before I joined it. It's something I wasn't familiar with. I obviously knew it was so popular, but I obviously just knew the format was similar to a format like Grange Hill, because at the time, obviously, it did. When Grange Hill initially came out, it was like a gritty school drama. Like by the time I was in it and it moved to CBBC, obviously it was a bit more tamed down, but it's a very, Waterloo Road was kind of what Grange Hill used to be. So it was very familiar for me. And then obviously having people from Grange Hill already being on the show, it was just immediately comfortable for me to go into that environment. Like, so it didn't, because I think it was in like a 6-month time gap. I'd just finished Grange Hill and then I started auditioning for Waterloo Road. I didn't get the initial job that I went for on Waterloo Road then, but at that time, the audition process for Waterloo Road, I think, which we spoke about in the last Zoom, was so huge. It was literally everybody in the every young person auditioned for Waterloo Road. So then they just brought back a small selection of people to audition for Lauren. I think I mentioned last time, she's only ever supposed to be in 3 episodes just as Sambuca's friend to aid that storyline. So I was never expecting to stay in it at all. It was kind of like, oh, this is a nice job after Waterloo Road, because I was just starting. I was in secondary school already when I started. So I think my school at the time when I got Waterloo Road, they were like, oh, for God's sake. Because I've been doing Grange Hill, was never at school, and then got Waterloo Road and they thought, all right, it's good now, you can calm down, come back to school, and it just never happened.
By the way, that's got to be kind of like the biggest mug I've seen. It's like a bowl. Like, I don't know if you have like a bowl
from
of tea.
IKEA. It's my favourite bowl. It's got peppermint tea in it. It's my favourite.
Do you know, I always remember when I watched the show, you were one of those characters that just became huge in regards to fame. You know, people just really loved the character, and, you know, your life changed in that respect. Was that difficult with the kind of level of fame you got so quickly to kind of adapt to?
I would say, I mean, because you're a certain age, like obviously when I first joined, I was kind of very protected from it because I was a child. So like, obviously most places I still went, I'd be with my mum. So I never felt like the effect of anybody hounding. And I'd probably say everybody would say the same on Waterloo Road. Like, I never really saw that effect of it being like, you know, what some people deal with in terms of like media. It was never aggressive like that. I think the only thing I was ever concerned about was my actual personal relationship. So like, I always found it, because I was out of school so much. I moved my secondary school that I moved to at the time when I'd started Grange Hill. I didn't know anybody. It was a completely different school. It wasn't in my catchment area as such. So I think it always just worried me in terms of making friends. That was the only thing that bothered me. But to be honest, like, as a testament to my friends, like I never had any issues. Like, I had like my life was normal. Obviously there were certain things, and I look back now and I think, God, I experienced such a lot at a young age, but while it was happening, I just felt like a normal kid. I didn't feel any different.
And obviously you were on the show for such a long time, and in a lot of episodes. So when it came to you leaving the show as an actress, were there parts of you where you were kind of like, I'm worried now going forward in regards to, will people just associate me with this one show and the one character? Were you kind of worried about the effects that would have on other jobs going forward?
100%. I think I still worry about it now, if I'm honest. Like, it was such a big show. And I think I remember saying to my agent at the time, I was like, God, I feel like I'm never going to get out of a school tie, because I'd come from Grange Hill and then gone straight into Waterloo Road. I think that's how I felt. So I was worried at first, but to be honest, it was the right time for me to go because I wanted to go to university. So I think that sidetracked me for a while in terms of being initially worried about what was going to happen straight afterwards, because I think I'd always planned to that I wanted to go to university, and I studied history at university. So I think for a while, but I did still work at university. Like, I did a job called The Crash as soon as I came out of Waterloo Road about 6 months later. So I still work, but I think anybody is, because you get into, when you're in a long running recurring show like that, you kind of think it's not going to end. And I think a lot of people would probably say that. So when it does end, and the way obviously it ended for us was quite abrupt with it moving to Scotland as well. So some characters obviously got the option to move to Waterloo Road, but there was a lot of us that didn't get that option to do that. It was like, this is the direction the show's going in, and it can't include everybody, understandably, and they wanted new characters because they had to fit it in with it moving to Scotland. So I think it shocked everybody, but at the same time, I think I've always been quite a positive person in terms of I never see a door closing. So if a door closes, I know it just means another one's opening. So I felt at that point, well, this is the right time for me to go. So yeah.
I've seen that since you've left. You've been in various dramas and done, you know, kind of work since leaving the show. So is that what are you still a full-time actress, or do you do something else on the side?
Well, I think like most actors, especially at the moment, with everything that's happened, I've been very, very lucky in the sense that my which, you know, a lot of I feel very grateful that I'm in the situation that my family do run a business. So I've always, alongside my acting, I've always worked there. So it's very flexible in terms of if I do book a job, it's not difficult to get the time off. If I need to audition, I can do it very easily because obviously I work with my family, so they support what I want to do. But yeah, so I'm very grateful for the position that I'm in, because I know it's a struggle, because with acting, you could work constantly for 5 years and then not work for 3, because there's just some roles, especially now. I think obviously when we were younger, the pool of actors is naturally smaller when you're in, you know, when you work from being a child. The competition is the pool's a lot smaller. As you get older, it becomes bigger and bigger. So I think if I didn't, just because of the type of person that I am, I know that I need to do something else while acting, because I think I'd lose my mind at certain times. So, but for some people, they don't need to do that. But just with the way my brain works, I can't focus on one thing at a time. I'm a bit scatty like that. So, so I like to keep myself busy. So I think most actors are in a position, I don't know anybody that I've ever worked with that at a certain time they've not had to go get a normal job, as people would call it, because we have bills to pay at the end of the day.
Well, do you know, when we announced that you're on a show, you've got so many people that just absolutely love you, and they got in touch, and we got some questions for you from your fans. So we're going to put these to you. So we've got the first one is from Bethany Stavely Haynes, who said, how did you feel about the birthmark storyline on Waterloo Road?
God, I have to cast my mind back. So that was probably Lauren's only personal storyline, I think. Well, barring actually, I think there was one later where she went because she wanted a boob job, which was just, that wasn't like it wasn't that serious. But in terms of the birthmark storyline, I think it was good, and I think it was needed for Lauren, because I think on the surface she was presented when she came in as this hard, I'll fight anyone if you say anything to me. And I think it was time to show a sensitive side that she had to, and that she was insecure about something. It showed a vulnerability, because before that, I don't think you ever saw it. So I think it was a really good storyline at the time, and I really, really enjoyed filming it. But yeah, I think it was needed. So I was really happy when I got the script through. And obviously when any storyline comes up personally in the show, the producers used to call you in the office to speak to you about it, like, this is what we've got planned, this is what's coming up. How do you feel about it? I mean, long term, I still get people that DM me saying, have you still got your birthmark? Like, it's not real. People it's not. It was made literally out of like it was like a paper mache, like toilet roll thing. It was mad how they made it. Obviously the makeup artists were very talented at doing it. But yeah, I just think it showed a different side to Lauren. So then especially, I think it set her up well for obviously the other huge storyline of Sambuca getting cancer, and that I think it showed that actually she was a massive softie at heart. Like, she cared about her friends a lot. So I think it opened the door for them to be able to include her in storylines like that.
The next question is from Dale Bilbrey, who said, do you keep in touch with fellow cast members?
So I do, yeah. So the person I've kept in touch with the most over the years is Lucian, who played Jonah. So because I've known Lucian since I was 11. So he's probably, in terms of who's still present, like in my life, is him, in terms of who I'd speak to. Obviously, I don't get to see him very much because he's here, there and everywhere all the time, because he's so busy. But in terms of like a day-to-day, I speak to. But obviously, I speak to everybody like via, like, even on Instagram. Like, I try and keep in touch with as many people as I can. But physically seeing people, I haven't seen everyone for a while. But I obviously still keep in touch with most people.
Did Lucian know about the reunion? Did he get in touch about it? Because we really wanted him part of it.
No, to be honest, I probably haven't spoken to him since about Christmas time. I haven't spoken to him because I was actually thinking I should have told him. But he has been, I never know where he is. Like sometimes he's in America, sometimes he's just here, there, and everywhere. So to actually get him to commit to something is difficult.
The next one is, I think, is a really good question from Robin Bazza, who said, "If you could have written a storyline for Lauren, what would it have been about, and what characters would you have liked to have been involved with it?"
Oh my God, that's a really good question.
Probably something you wouldn't have thought about as well. So it's a really difficult question just to spring on you.
That's a very difficult question.
Because you were friends with so many big characters in the show, so you could have incorporated them in. So you could have done something really big if you were to have written one yourself.
It's difficult because she was kind of, in terms of having her own storyline, she didn't have many, but she always seemed to weave her way into other people. So she was quite well connected with most people, I would think. I think as a sideline, I think it is quite a horrible storyline, but I think it would have been good if she'd have, because I think there was times where obviously her relationships were never really explored in it. So I think she had that relationship storyline with Josh in the show, but that was obviously to aid the storyline of him coming out. So again, it was kind of like an aid, was that. But I think it would have been good to see her how she functioned in an actual relationship in the show. Like that might have been a good storyline to go ahead with. But that's a very difficult question. But in terms of people that it would involve, I think the people who I worked with, because obviously it was done in like year groups who you worked, because you got to remember it was a school. So kind of most of your storyline were based around people in your year group. And I think most of the storylines I did have, it may have been funny if Kyle and Lauren had a little thing, because they were like probably like the two bad boys of the year. In that, like I was probably the naughtiest girl and he was the naughtiest boy, so that might have been quite fun to explore. And I don't think I had too many storylines directly with George, actually, from what I remember. We were kind of involved in a lot of people's, but I don't think I ever had one directly involved with George from my memory. I mean, it is a long time ago, so maybe I did, so I apologize if I did, but from what I can remember, I think in terms of my year group, I probably worked with George less in terms of storyline, so it'd have been good to work with George more as well.
Stuart Wilson said, "Since leaving, what have you done?" But we've covered that in the interview really today. Anyway, in regards to the other projects, so we'll move over to Lewis Peter Greeno. I hope I said that right. He said, "Who for Lauren was the best head teacher?" Because you had Rachel, you had Karen, you had Mr. Burns. So did you have a favourite head teacher to kind of be in charge?
Yeah, I think Rachel. So Rachel was Eva Pope's character, wasn't it? Yeah, that's I think right. Rachel. So yeah, I would say Rachel was my favourite head teacher.
And then Lee Smith said Sam's death was one of the hardest things for her to watch on the show. So she wants to know, for you, what episode did you find hard to film? Or was there a moment or a scene that you just found really difficult as an actress to actually film?
So I'll actually tell you a funny story, because this will actually make people laugh. So around that storyline is obviously when we go to Blackpool for like, that's the last thing she wanted to do with a friend. So I absolutely hate roller coasters. Like, cannot stand them. But the original draft of that episode was that obviously it was supposed to be Jack and Holly that were on it. So obviously they were girlfriend and boyfriend. So he was supposed to be on the ride with her. But Jack outwardly refused. He was like, I can't do that. It's too high. I'm not doing it. So they rewrote it for me to be on it. I got the short straw pulled without knowing. So I remember we were in Blackpool, and obviously they have to rig all the roller coaster seats. So it was what's the big one thingy? What's it called? The Pepsi Max. So they had to rig it all. So the worst thing for me was being sat in it, and I just wanted it to go. I was like, just go, like, and I kept hearing like, are you ready to ride? Are you ready to ride? And honestly, Holly was squeezing my hand, and I was like, can't do this, I can't do it. And Holly's like, you can, it'll be fine. And I remember saying to the director at the time, I think the director was Julie at the time, I said, I can literally only do this once. So I said, if this take doesn't work, I can't do it again. Like, this is awful. So we got to the top. I couldn't even act. Like, I couldn't act. I was just completely scared. And the camera was basically rigged right in front of us, because obviously you couldn't have a cameraman up there. It's right in front of us. Got all the way back round. I was like, was that fine? She was like, we've got to do it again. I said, why? She went, because you swore. She went, as you were going down, you just went, shit. It's really loud. So I had to do it again. So I'd say personally, that was probably the most difficult thing I had to film, because I was just, I couldn't be Lauren in that moment. I was just Darcy. I was just like, I'm absolutely petrified. I don't want to do this, but I knew I had to do it. So I'd say, surprisingly, that was probably the hardest thing I've had to film in Waterloo Road. I hated every minute of it.
God, I would have got off that roller coaster and been fuming with Jack just for putting me in that situation. I would have looked at him and been like, nah, you can just.
But I think he had a real fear. Like, my fear is just a bit in my head, and he was like, "Das, I can't do it." Like, but he'd already told them, I think, when we read the draft, that he wasn't going to do it. So they obviously rewrote it for me to do it.
I'm going to go for as many of these in the next 5 minutes as we can. And the next one ties in with something you just said, actually, about you when you're on that roller coaster. You couldn't be Lauren, you were Darcy. Because Imogen May Barker has said, how alike are you and Lauren? Are there any similarities?
Yeah, I think they are, actually. So I think in terms of, like, she was very quick-witted, had good clapbacks at people when they said stuff. I think I'm very similar to that. In terms of, I think she's got a sensitive side. So, like, I would say, like, when I was talking about her earlier, where she kind of presents herself on the surface as being this real tough girl, like, don't mess with me. I probably don't have much of the don't mess with me quality. I'm probably a bit kinder than she is in some situations. But I think in terms of where on the surface she's very confident, does that, but, deep down she is quite vulnerable. So I'd say we do have similar qualities in that sense. But I think the only difference we have is probably the aggression is quite a lot in Lauren.
Oh, well, the next one is Lisa Little said, who was your best friend on set?
So he's my best friend. So on set, I would say me and Will Rush were very close. Like, we became really, really good friends. And then I would say Holly as well, because literally all my scenes involved Holly. So I was constantly with Holly. And like I mentioned before, Holly's also from Leeds. So we used to get taxis into work. So my taxi would pick her up. So from the moment I got from getting in the car to getting home, I would be with Holly constantly.
So we tried to get them both on the show for you, but we didn't have any luck with them. But hopefully again we'll get them on. The next one is from Adam Walpole. I really hope I'm really bad with pronunciation of names, but Adam Walpole said, what did you enjoy most about filming Waterloo Road? What was kind of the most exciting thing for you, kind of week in, week out, to do?
I just think week in, week, I just loved the environment, the atmosphere of being on set, who I got to work with, just all of it, like right down from the drivers we had who took us into work to our makeup team, our costume team, everybody. I think obviously what people see on screen, they resemble Waterloo Road with just the actors, but it's not that for me. It's the whole, everybody was a family, and it was like we'd film 6 months on, 6 months off, and then you'd come back and it was like you were back with your family again. So I think just that, I just think, and I know we mentioned it on the Zoom before, like just how great everybody got along, and it was just, it wasn't like work. It wasn't like work at all.
Maria Marchetti Bell said, if Waterloo Road returned, would you go back as a teacher?
I mean, never say never, probably.
I don't know what she would teach.
This is what I was going to say. I can't imagine Lauren would be the greatest teacher. I don't think she'd have the patience for it. But definitely, I would never say never on it, because it's such a great show and it's so loved. So I think I would never say no to that.
Georgia Petty said, what was your favourite season? Because obviously you did so many. So is there one that stands out for you as kind of the favourite when you look back?
The thing is, what's difficult is I can't differentiate the seasons, to be honest, like in terms of, because we did so many episodes, it kind of all just amasses into one for me. But to be honest, I think the first season I joined is probably the most memorable for me, just because I didn't expect to be in it for so long. And I remember the episode that I joined in was like when we were doing the choir. And for me, I'm like the biggest Sister Act 2 fan you've ever met in your life. So I had like an out of body experience where I thought it was like Lauryn Hill in Sister Act. And it like is honestly, so I think that was like for me the best thing, because I absolutely adored filming those episodes. But yeah, I just say the first season, because it's like the first season I was in it was probably the one I look back on being as the most memorable, because like I said, I didn't expect to stay in it. So as I was just getting more and more scripts, it was great. And obviously that's where I met everyone and got to know everyone. So I'd probably say for me, that's the most memorable. But in terms of, I can't really differentiate the seasons anymore, if I'm honest. It's all kind of a mass to one.
And the next one was from Annie Hogan, who said, if you weren't Lauren in Waterloo Road, is there anybody else you would have liked to have been? So another character. So if you weren't cast as Lauren, that you would have think, do you know what? I would have loved to have been that character.
Yeah, let me just think. I think without a doubt, Janice is like the best character ever written in Waterloo Road. So I think that like it's so well written, and it is just what she embodies all of Waterloo Road. So I think if there's any character I would have loved to play, then, and I think they're quite similar in certain ways as well. But Janice is just more than Lauren.
Well, I want to thank everyone for getting their questions in. There were some people that asked questions that we've already kind of covered in the interview. So John Duncan was one of them who asked, James Marshall. So a big shout out to everyone for getting your questions in. And thank you. It's been great to actually kind of explore Lauren a little bit more with you, but also find out where your kind of love for acting came from. And obviously we've touched upon, we're in this crazy times at the moment, productions ceased. They're hopefully coming back soon. Is there anything you're working on or that you can tell us about that could be coming up in the future?
Not at the moment, no. Honestly, it's been so quiet, which I think anyway. Obviously, we're constantly auditioning, but obviously the complete format of auditioning at the moment is totally down to self-taping. So I'm really hoping we can go back to in the room auditions, because I hate self-tapes. Oh, pardon me. Obviously, I have to do them, but I much prefer meeting casting directors. I just think there's a better vibe in general. So nothing to report at the moment, but like I say, I stay hopeful that things will recover, and I'm sure they will. And then, so I don't know any actor at the moment, just hang in there. It'll come back. It really will. Just have
Darcy, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I know your fans are going to be delighted that you took so much time to answer their questions as well. So thank you for joining us on the show today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. And thanks for just organising all of this. It's been so nice to speak about the show again and just connect with everyone. It's been great. So thank you for that.